Welcome to Careers Unwrapped Masterclass, bite-sized episodes focused on skills to help you excel in your career. Masterclass will cover a new topic every episode, where we'll speak to career experts who will share their tips, tricks, and raw actionable advice. As someone who has had a varied career, from soldier to salesman, expedition leader to entrepreneur, he knows firsthand that your career doesn't always lead you where you expect it to. Here's your host, Mark Fawcett.
Hello and welcome to our third Careers Unwrapped Masterclass episode. Now, masterclasses are going to focus on topics specifically designed to give you the skills you need to excel in your career. I'm your host, Mark Fawcett, and our topic for today is leadership. So I'm really excited to be joined by Sara Sabin. She's a transformational leadership coach and a consultant. She's built a really successful coaching practice, working with entrepreneurs and leaders of high growth businesses. And so she's here today to share her extensive knowledge and experience and hopefully give us some tips and tricks on how to build leadership skills and increase one's impact in the world. So Sara, welcome to the show.
Hi, Mark. Thank you so much for having me. And I think the main challenge for me will be keeping this to 10 minutes. So fingers crossed.
On that, let's get straight into it. What is the importance of leadership skills in growing one's career?
Well, the importance of leadership skills is we are in a world where, unfortunately, trust in leadership is at an all-time low. So Gallup did a study last year and only 21% of employees agreed that they actually trusted the leadership at the company that they were working for, which is telling in itself. And as we move into a world that's more technology-driven, more AI-driven, you want to be developing those, I'm going to call them softer skills, but the skills that will enable you to thrive and that cannot easily be emulated by a machine.
And leadership is a term, it's bandied around very easily, but maybe not often thought about. What do you think are some of the myths around leadership?
So I'm going to give you 3 myths. The first myth is that a job title makes you a leader. So a title does not mean anything by itself, and it certainly doesn't say anything about your ability to lead other people. As I've said, what is quite clear at the moment is that leadership skills are often lacking in people in companies that have management and executive management positions. The reality is that if we boil leadership down to a set of skills, anyone from any walk of life, with or without a title, can lead because they need to think about it as developing a set of skills. So that's myth number 1. Myth number 2, leadership is the same as management. So I often hear those 2 terms used interchangeably. And in fact, they're 2 very different things. So management is usually a position that's bestowed upon you. It has set roles and responsibilities in relation to you and your team. So a manager's main role is to organize people and resources to get things done and to get things done to a timeline in order to meet certain objectives. So largely they're more operational. They manage tasks in the detail of everything. Leadership is about vision and people. So leaders understand the big picture of what they're trying to create. They understand the direction of travel. And that essentially, when you understand that, determines the goals and activities and priorities that you focus on. And also leaders lead people. So they know how to motivate people to get results, whereas managers might not necessarily be that focused on it. So the third thing is, and I hear this quite often, well, I'm not a leader because I'm not charismatic enough. And that's because we see like famous leaders, the Elon Musk and Steve Jobs of the world, and they were super charismatic and they were always out there in the public eye. Actually, what you see of these leaders doesn't actually speak to their leadership abilities, i.e. how they lead people. They're certainly visionary, but they weren't and aren't necessarily great leaders of people. So the best leaders actually are often unassuming, quiet, humble people that know very well how to listen, how to get the best out of others, and how to lead a group of people to achieve a set of results. So there's a book called Good to Great by Jim Collins, and he actually talks about exceptional leadership. He calls it level 5 leadership. And those are some of the qualities that he picked out: the humbleness, the results drivenness, the kind of quiet guy at the back of the room.
So I think almost taking those in reverse order, you don't have to be the outspoken, loud extrovert to be a leader at all. Just because you get promoted into a management role doesn't mean you're a leader. But I think really importantly, the first one you made, people can develop the skills. Anybody can improve the skills that they have as a leader. And so I think that brings us on from the myths then to your advice here. So if I'm a career starter in the early years of my career and I've listened and go, okay, I want to improve my leadership skills, what are 3 things I could be doing to achieve that?
So I'm going to talk about 3 key skills. I'm going to caveat that with, obviously there are more, but I'm picking out ones that are simple and that can be integrated into wherever you are right now. So I'm going to also say start small. So number 1, flex your visionary muscle. So when you're thinking about where you are right now, envision the end point, so where you're trying to get to. And that vision might change over time, but if you start with the end in mind and you understand why that end is meaningful to you, you can start to make decisions in alignment with that end point. So if I give a very practical example, right? Let's say you want to improve your health and you've identified 3 things that you want to achieve. You want to have more energy, you want to be able to run faster, and let's say you want to lose weight as well. So you've got the end point in mind, you know exactly why you want to do it. Essentially, you would then start to make decisions in alignment with that. So every time you go past a donut shop, you're like, is this decision to buy a donut in alignment with the vision of myself that I have at the end point? Or does it get me further away from that? So that's number 1. Number 2, which is interlinked with number 1, actually make decisions. Make decisions that feel aligned with that endpoint. But again, you can start small because a lot of people defer decisions in all aspects of their lives. So stop obsessing whether this decision you're going to make is right or wrong, because you'll never actually know the answer to that question until you're doing it. And you will make far more progress actually making decisions, even if some of them are wrong, in inverted commas, than not taking decisions at all. So when you think about decisions, you're thinking about risk and reward. And there's a very good rule of thumb that can help you decide when is the right point to make that decision. If you are less than 40% sure that your decision will go the way you want it to go, don't make the decision yet. However, if you wait until you are more than 70% sure that that decision will be correct, then you've waited too long. So that's actually called the Colin Powell rule. And then the third thing is learn to listen and learn to ask better questions. So I'm sure you might have heard the expression, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth.
For a reason.
Exactly. So we should be listening more than we're speaking. And when we listen, we're actually learning better how to influence other people, because you're learning to understand more about what motivates people. You're learning to ask questions that open people up and encourage them to talk. And you're then listening to the answers and you're communicating what you've heard back to them. So you're reflecting back to them. Now, the leader as coach is a really important concept. So when a leader develops coaching skills, which is basically in a nutshell what I've just talked about there, it makes them a better leader because they're stopping that cycle of trying to convince people and like pull people along and it feels like a heavy boulder. When you stop trying to convince people and really start listening and asking the right questions to help them come to their own conclusions, you're developing that leadership skill set.
I think what's interesting in context of all of that is actually contextual leadership as well, because people will often think, I'm this type of leader. I'm a bold, assertive leader. And someone else might think I'm a very collaborative, considerative sort of leader like that. Yet there's also the right context to be a different type of leader. And so, for example, if you're at work and you've got a team working on a project and you're trying to get the best ideas and thoughts out of them, you're discussing a lot with them. And as you say, you're listening a lot. But if on the way home, that same leader is involved in a vehicle accident, that's not the time to start asking everyone's viewpoints around. It's the time perhaps to be very decisive and get people into safe situations. So do you have any thoughts about how you adapt leadership styles to different contexts?
Yeah, I do think, and this is why I've actually picked two things that seem slightly contradictory. You need to make decisions, but also you need to learn how to listen. Adapting your leadership style in context with what is appropriate in that circumstance is really important. So by all means, you sit down, you talk to your team, you get opinions, you listen to those opinions. But at the end of the day, you are there to make decisions. You're not there to get stuck at an impasse. So there's both things are needed. They're not mutually exclusive. And whilst I think that collaborative leadership is a great thing, it can lead to blocks where nobody is making a decision because everyone's just sitting around discussing it all the time. So it's about doing what needs to be done, making the decision so you can act.
I think that's been really useful, really insightful in such a short period of time, Sarah, because anybody listening to this thinking, okay, what steps can I actually make? It's very practical to learn to listen more. And it's an actual step you can force yourself to do. Bite your tongue occasionally and just listen to what people around you are saying. Definitely your first point about giving a vision, understanding for yourself, first of all, what the vision is, and then being able to communicate to others. So everyone go, okay, we know the direction we're heading in. And then the point you made in the middle about making decisions is something personally I've had so much experience of the need to do that. And then the vast majority of decisions you make are hopefully right, but you need to understand they won't always be. But that's much better than just constantly putting off or not making the decision. So, Sara, thank you very much. Our masterclasses are short, sharp, and to the point. And there are some very key takeaways there that anybody's thinking, I want to develop my leadership skills. There are practical things they can do. So, Sara, leadership consultant, expert, thank you very much for joining us on the Careers Unwrapped Masterclass today.
It was my absolute pleasure. Thank you, Mark.
This podcast is sponsored by We Are Futures. To find out more about We Are Futures and how we can introduce your brand, business, or organisation to the mass markets of tomorrow, visit www.wearefutures.com. Make sure to search for Careers Unwrapped in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Remember to click subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at We Are Futures, thanks for listening.